Hello and welcome back to Surviving Boredom.
You've made it.
Yeah, with Topher and Will.
I'm Will.
This is our second episode. And since yesterday we made a few changes.
A few exciting changes, I would say.
We got
a bit more professional.
We got ourselves some title music. I did wade through a lot of royalty-free license, and in the end, it was not really a case of what fitted. It was what did we like,
Pretty much.
We picked something that we liked.
So enjoy.
Eventually, we settled on a song called "The Show Must Be Go," and I've just realised that that's what it's called.
I thought it was The Show Must Go On.
No, it's definitely The Show Must Be Go.
The Show Must Be Go.
And it's by Kevin MacLeod. Kevin MacLeod.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Mate, your music is awesome. Seriously, there is so much that I would happily listen to them as albums. Certainly the one we chose. It's pretty cool. We should use it for our exit music as well, right?
Well, it's only fair, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love him. But yeah, he has his own website. All the music that's on there is his own. Incompetech.filmmusic.io. You can find it on Google. Just type in Incompetech.
Yes.
Or type in Kevin MacLeod and go have a look if you need any royalty-free music. All you got to do is credit him. We'll pop it in the link to our podcast as well.
Kevin MacLeod is that other guy, right?
No,
Homes Under the Hammer.
Oh, is it? I was going to say...
Location.
All I can think of is Colin MacLeod. He's the mentalist from Got Talent, isn't he?
Right, so that name again is Kevin MacLeod.
Yeah, it's Kevin MacLeod.
Kevin MacLeod.
Kevin MacLeod.
Not Kevin MacLeod or anything else.
Go check him out.
Check him out.
We've also posted our podcast on Anchor FM, which is great for podcasters. It basically takes your episodes, your content, and distributes it everywhere for you.
Distributes it as far and wide as possible.
iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, various other places. We actually are already on Spotify. You can find us on Spotify. Hooray! Yay! It's actually kind of weird seeing your own work just alongside other people's. It's very unsettling, but exciting. So this episode, we're going to be talking about Disney Plus. We had a bit of a, shall we say, confliction. We argued for a while that we weren't going to get it because we didn't want to give Disney any more money, to put it plain and simply. But I just ended up looking through the library, through, what was actually available there, and it just became apparent that there was a lot more than I realised. It wasn't a case that I was going to be paying money for what is the conglomerate Disney now, but I was also paying for things that I hadn't seen since I was a child, that I grew up with.
So basically Disney Plus is a sort of a time capsule of sorts. I think that's what's fun about it,
Absolutely.
Fact, just like a time capsule, it's filled with a lot of different things from particular times, but also kind of the stuff they want you to see from that time, more or less. There's quite a lot of old properties that are just in the Disney Vault that will probably never see the light of day anymore. But the other side of things, it's balanced by Disney's voracious need for content.
Absolutely.
So if they can get away with it, if they think they can get away with it, they'll probably put it on Disney Plus.
Well, that being said, I think for a lot of us, certainly 90s kids, 90s, 2000s kids, we were only really seeing things that Disney wanted us to see anyway. It was incredible going back and watching things that maybe you didn't realise had such an impact when you were younger. For me, I think the biggest one was Lilo and Stitch. As children, we grew up with it, but Robin, my cousin, was the Stitch fan. We called her Experiment 626. She just bounced off the walls like a pinball. It was her movie. And I always saw it as that. All of a sudden, it was not the association with her that I had with the movie. It was suddenly, oh my gosh, it's all these things that I remember. For me, mainly the music.
Yeah.
That has always stuck with me.
Wait, do a rendition.
What?
Ohana.
Ohana means family. And family means nobody gets left behind. Yeah, that's it.
That kind of thing.
But also, the TV shows. The TV shows just, I'd forgotten about them. But as soon as I pressed play, there it was. Every word to the title song. Every episode. I know what happens. Oh my gosh, I remember this. It was suddenly just a moment where you're a child again.
Absolutely.
And that is worth it. It is worth it.
It's worth the 30 pieces of silver. Or
It's
whatever we
worth
said
the
yesterday.
$5.99 or whatever. Not to mention, of course, there's the entire Marvel franchise. Now, that has its own section on Disney Plus, of course it does, and I believe it does have everything, doesn't it? I think they've just put Far From Home on there, maybe. So I think that's everything now. I love it. I love it, but I don't want to love it. I don't want to be so swept away by it and eaten up by it, but I just can't help myself.
It's just that kind of dissonance where it's like, you know, Disney as a company has done, I mean, obviously, they do charity work and stuff, but they've done some pretty heinous things. They're famously litigious.
Well, this is usually the conversation we end up having.
Mickey Mouse and stuff.
We are paying money to go to the cinema or to watch these movies. We kind of know what we're going to get.
Kind of like an experience.
But it's the experience. We're there for the experience. But there is also a massive part of Disney that is so far beyond that. We watched all the shorts. The short anthology.
Yes.
What was it called? I can't remember what it's called. And basically it was just 16, 17 short little 5-minute episodes. And the idea behind it is that anybody within the Disney company can come up with an idea, a concept for an animation. And if they get through, they then get to make this short animated piece. And every single one of them was absolutely fantastic. All the Pixar shorts are just 6 to 11 minutes of pure emotion. Whether it's joy, depression, whatever it is, it feels amazing. Anyway, so, I mean, yeah, it is worth it if you are into all of those sides of Disney. If you're, somebody who just wants to watch Marvel or just wants to, I mean, I'm sure most people already have the collection anyway.
Well, I mean, I feel like you do yourself a bit of a disservice.
The
older stuff, like the stuff you'd watch on Channel 5, at like 5 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, like the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, or the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, or, just stuff that you haven't seen for a while.
Maybe you probably haven't seen at all, or it was something that was just on a Sunday at 5 and you would randomly turn over, or you would walk into the living room and your aunt or your gran is watching it or something, That's certainly my experience with those kind of Disney movies. We were much more into the animated Disney movies.
Yeah, well, that brings us
But that was because we were 90s.
That sort of brings us on to our Disney connections, I guess. That we don't have quite the same relationship with Disney.
Absolutely not.
With you, it's those classic animation, the Disney Renaissance.
I'd say for me, absolutely. But it's not all of it, I didn't have any interest really in the girls particularly. It was more the ones that caught my eye as far as the music was concerned. Because those are the ones that have stuck with me as I've gotten older, Mulan and Pocahontas. Again, I wouldn't have considered them my movies when I was younger. My movie when I was little was Aladdin, and that was it. It was Aladdin. That was my movie. And again, that had nothing to do with princesses. Or the movie did, but it had nothing. I didn't like it because of princesses or because of Prancy dancing around the place. It was that genie. It was just genie. It was something, and like they said, that was the first time they'd ever animated anything like that before, because they just let him record and then animated to that. And it was just this whole new world, really. Again, I don't...
Do you mean to do that?
Don't.
Oh dear.
That was intentionally unintentional.
Okay. I mean, I kind of like the turn of the 21st century Disney, where they really weren't that sure about where to go next. They were kind of like Pixar.
Do you mean as far as animation?
Animation, certainly as far as animation.
Well, I think
you get some
from then
weird
on,
stuff like Treasure Planet.
Yeah, that's not weird. It's amazing. I love that experiment. Treasure Planet. Atlantis is one of the that's one of the greatest Disney movies as far as animation is concerned. I mean, that's when they first started using 3D. I mean, you can see it when you watch it, how the camera work is done and how they've literally rendered things in 3D. It was just, on another level. But if it's an adaptation, I usually feel like it's going to be okay. The BFG. They just did the BFG. That was fantastic. There was parts of it that's just makes you laugh a little bit.
Wait, was BFG Disney?
The BFG was Disney.
I thought it was Amblin.
Yeah, Amblin used to be Touchstone, right?
No, Touchstone is still Touchstone. Touchstone is like their distribution arm.
Double check me on that. But it says Disney's BFG. So, yeah, it's definitely Disney. But, well, exactly. You didn't even know that it was Disney, right? Because it doesn't comply to that natural warm kind of thing that you get from Disney. It makes you feel good, but it's quite dark, isn't it? It's quite... Which just seems to be how they're going now. You know, they've moved from necessarily experimental to sort of sometimes anti-hero, certainly as far as things like Maleficent.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose with the Marvel
Didn't
side
feel
as well,
like Disney at all.
There seems to be a slight... I mean, has it ever been otherwise, though? I mean, the best Disney films, Disney understands the need that it can't all be Flopsy bunnies and stuff. Like, there has to be something dark happening. There has to be something...
Absolutely, but the way they deal with the darkness is usually quite comedic. Cruella de Vil. I mean, how much darker do you get than wanting...
She's a comedy. She's partly a comedy character.
Yeah, but
she's a comedy villain.
How much darker do you get than wanting to skin 100 puppies?
It's pretty... Yeah,
that's dark, right? I mean, I'd argue that's probably one of the darkest villains in Disney history, skinning puppies, you know? But the way they deal with it is quite comedic. You know, the way they deal with the character of Cruella de Vil. Like you said, she's a comedy villain. BFG, it did have comedic value here and there, but there were parts of it that were quite... You didn't really get from certainly the first movie, let alone the book.
And when you say first movie, you mean the
animated movie, yeah. Right. Whiz pop, whiz bang. Feel the bubbles go down. Yeah, that one. And then Maleficent was kind of like another level beyond, you know. That's almost it's quite tormenting. For something that has a Disney stamp on it nowadays, that's quite edgy. You know, like you said, they only show you what they want to show you. Exactly.
They didn't exactly bury it, did they?
No, that's what I'm saying. So sometimes it can be quite conflicting because although it may feel like we're being filtered, it's being filtered and we're only seeing what they want us to see. They do also show things like that, which shows that they can. Anyway, we've rambled on a bit. The Mandalorian.
Right. From Jon Favreau.
Happy from Iron Man.
Yeah.
In case
himself.
Yeah, in case anybody didn't know, Mum didn't know, and she was pretty shocked. I'm pretty shocked. He did a fantastic job.
I mean, you've also got to consider the contributions of the head writer, who I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but. You know, has done a lot of like Star Wars stuff. I think part of that is why it feels so different, because it's always felt like the extended universe stuff was where you could have the wacky ideas, you know, and the crazy concepts. And I mean, obviously they removed a lot of that stuff from canon or circulation, however you want to put it, but it just feels like a real breath of fresh air.
It absolutely is.
But it absolutely was.
Well, I'd argue that it's both. It's both a breath of fresh air, and it feels like a bit of a throwback. He's not constantly wandering around with lightsabers and laser weapons and stuff. He gets up and close and he gets on with it, you know, which is awesome. But what it also harkens back to is the thing that I loved about Star Wars when I was little, and that's the characters. Like the old lady he meets when he goes to the scrap store and she's got her little robots that run around helping her. Yeah. She was all weird and kooky and like reminded you of like your art teacher or something, you know? That was fantastic. And then also the alien creatures, because everyone is just dressed up. They look like Star Wars characters. It feels like original Star Wars characters, that nothing is immensely CGI'd at all. It's
the balance.
It's really balanced.
It's really balanced. It feels like it's got a good balance between practical and CGI. I'm not a practical only guy, you know, or as many practical effects as possible.
I freaking love The Phantom Menace and I love A New Hope.
You know, I do like to see practical effects, but Mandalorian felt like everything was integrated really intelligently.
Yeah.
Like they knew when it was a CG
really
shot.
Well.
They knew when, this has to be a model. This is a CG shot. You know, like circling back round to like the characters, like I'm astonished at how much empathy I felt for the Mandalorian, considering he's like Master Chief. You know, he just wears a mask the whole time.
I felt sorry for him, but they did do that Kylo Ren thing that they did with Kylo Ren, and he took his mask off and he looked like shit.
Oh, you talk about Force Awakens? Yeah. Yeah, that moment of disappointment you had.
I know. I like Adam Driver. He's actually a really good-looking guy. I think it was just because of him. It was in the movie. He'd been wearing the mask. Obviously, he looks a bit skewed or whatever, but they took it off, and I was like, oh. And I kind of had that experience with this guy, even though I know, what's his name?
What, the actor's name?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was Carlos or something. He's a really good-looking guy. But then he took the mask off and he was like beaten to a pulp, obviously, and it was just like, oh god.
Well, I personally really like that. Oh, spoilers.
I don't know.
We're doing it all
Is
wrong.
that a spoiler?
That he takes his mask off at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, we
Uh,
haven't actually given anything away. I mean, he shot a guy. Is that?
yes, the Mandalorian shoots people.
He shot a guy.
That's a eye-watering spoiler for you there.
Yeah, Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda. Baby
Is
Yoda
that a
is in it.
spoiler? I mean, he is cute, don't get me wrong. He is so cute. But he doesn't really do anything.
I mean, he saves Mando a couple of times.
There's a couple of times he does something cool. And
it kind of reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? It's that Simpsons bit where Homer says, what's Maggie ever done for anyone? Nothing for nobody. And then she like catches like a beer bottle that's like flying in space in the ice hockey episode. That's kind of the relationship between Mando and
yeah,
Yoda
he just is always looking the other way and doesn't. Yeah,
he's always coming in and saving.
But he just saves everyone at the last minute. Little Baby Yoda, bless him.
I mean, lots of like callbacks to, you know, the classic Star Wars films.
I mean, they went to Tatooine.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy about that. Just because I think we've been to Tatooine enough now.
I don't think we'll go there again. I think it was just an establishing thing of, oh guys, look, you know Tatooine. You know, it's just quickly grabbing everyone in or whatever, and then we can. I think that's the thing with Baby Yoda as well, is kind of building to the, you know, him sort of actually getting on and doing stuff. For now, it's just giving us tastes that he can do something. But what is the extent of that which he can do?
I'm really interested in the setting and mythology of the show as well.
Yeah.
I like that it's set after the events of the original trilogy, but lots of callbacks to the prequels. I mean, he drives like a prequel era junk.
Yes, he does.
I mean, the thing is about this like people say it's like quite slow, but everything is done so well that you're sort of just drawn along.
Well, I think that might be why it's dispersed with these callbacks. Even ones that maybe we don't agree with, is because it does have to be a little slow at first. Personally, I wouldn't watch it and go, this is a slow show. You know, I understand why certain things have to take a while at first, and that's why it's been sprinkled with these callbacks, because it's just keeping you drawn in, you know, that this is a Star Wars show, guys.
Yeah.
Guys, this is Star Wars.
I really like how it starts out sort of like Bounty of the Week type format, and it feels like quite... I mean, this is a bit obvious, but it feels like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
He just drives a junk. He's just a working class kind of guy.
I'm one of those people who watches that
His
kind of
shit
American
looks
show.
like
I
shit.
mean, I felt like a little bit I was watching things like the old school Hercules and Xena, warrior princess. Especially the episode where he helped the village. That felt very much a callback to those kind of days where each episode would literally just be travelling to a place, helping them get rid of a demon or whatever, and then that's the end of the episode. That was it was very episodic, you know, with sprinkles of story, obviously, with great story. And what's his name? You know, the guy from The Simpsons, the bad guy, you know, the bald guy. He's always in the horror movies with the funny voice.
Yeah, God, his name's I can't remember.
Oh, I love him. He's amazing.
He talks like this.
Yeah, he talks like this. Yeah, he's so good.
How can I not remember his name? Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog, that's it.
Werner Herzog.
Werner. Yes, him. He's amazing. He's very good. Although every time he talks, all I can see is that Simpsons episode with him in it. That's my fault. I mean, all of my pop culture knowledge.
Just circling back to the village episode. Was it episode 7? What I really found refreshing about that episode too was like the sense of threat and danger was restored. I feel like with some of these sequel movies, particularly Rise of Skywalker, that was just taking some of the most bizarre out there concepts from like the expanded universe and just absolutely restraint in terms of like the threat it presents, like huge CG battles that don't really connect with anything or make you feel much of a sense of threat.
Yeah.
And actually in that episode, the main opponent is just a lone ATST. Like,
that is
almost
true.
Kills them.
Yeah, it's
like,
just one. I mean, it is a giant robot.
A giant chicken walker.
It is a giant robot.
The ATSTs are the chicken walkers for those who aren't.
It just really felt like a harken back to those days. I felt like I was watching Hercules or Xena or something.
Or just like I watch it and I'm reminded why I like Star Wars. I feel like
there was
for a long time,
of that. There was so much of that.
For a very long time, I've been watching things and like, you know, sort of enjoying it, but like
Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
The Nick Nolte's character, he reminded me of why I love Star Wars. Absolutely, because I mean, obviously,
like grizzled fucking.
Yeah, it was everything.
Like
It was everything. It was him, the little character, and he's got this mask on and stuff. He's not CGI'd at all. And then when he talks, he's got Nick Nolte's voice. You can barely understand him sometimes because he's, and it just fit the character so perfectly.
I mean, to be fair, like to a certain extent, the reason the Star Wars franchise has gone on as long as it has is partly because even when the films haven't been great, we've always had like cool spin-offs and cartoon properties.
Even the animated series, yeah.
I was trying to think if Mandalorian would have been made if George Lucas had stayed head of Lucasfilm. I think that there would have been much more kind of like meddling in terms of like, reference this character, reference that character, everything in this universe, everyone in this universe somehow knows each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. This person, how does Baby Yoda relate to...
Yeah, that's the balance that
Babu
we were
Frick.
talking about. There is some of that, but just enough to just remind you that you're watching Star Wars. But it's all the things that make you love it. It's not obnoxious
like Rogue One.
Yeah, it's not thrown in your face.
Here's the guy who they run into in the canteen.
Rogue One is basically just... I mean, they might as well just put two random characters on the screen fighting with lightsabers for 2.5 hours. Just do that.
There's a lot.
Yeah, it just feels like it's so messy now. I don't understand any of Star Wars anymore at all.
So we've sort of rambled on vaguely about Star Wars for.
Well, that was Mando Pando. That's what I call him. Mando Pando. Every time I see him on the screen, I'm like, hey, Mando Pando. I don't know why I do that.
Are we back?
We're back. Why are we saying we're back? Did we have an ad break?
Yeah, well, we may have had an ad break, but we've also listened to the first half of the episode.
But all this stuff's going to get cut because we're not going to tell them, are we?
I guess not.
We're just carrying on from where we left off.
Okay.
That's fair enough. So I'd like to touch briefly on the Disney Nature collection.
Yes.
I did understand that the concept was we were being introduced to these animals as families. They were given names and,
Disneyfied a bit.
Yeah, they were personified. Absolutely. Yeah. But as somebody who loves nature documentaries, obviously I was interested in watching them. I just didn't realise how absolutely bloody fantastic they were. I think the first one that I watched properly was the Born in China one. We watched that one with Mum. That was just adorable. Just so cute. The panda is, of course, the best one.
Wait, they have pandas in China?
What? Get out. We watched quite a few of them. The latest one that was released, of course, was Elephant, which everyone's been talking about. And you know what? She did an absolutely fantastic job. I don't understand why Meghan Markle can't just be one thing. I suppose she has married a prince and she's, but she absolutely deserves credit for that. She did a fantastic job. She is an actress anyway. The way she narrates it's interesting, it's lively. It sounds as if she's almost reading a storybook to children. Her voice is lush. It's,
Well, also, they've got a mortgage to pay now as well.
That is true. Is true. Hats off to her. I would love to hear her again. She should do more. Do more just to annoy people, yeah? But the main thing that struck me about it, of course, the moment it started playing, obviously, was the soundtrack.
Well, I think it needs to be established at this point. You're a big soundtrack guy.
I am a big soundtrack person. 3/4 of my library genuinely is trailer and soundtrack.
You've literally
music.
got 2 steps from hell, like tattooed.
Most of which, I will admit, are from nature documentaries, because those are the best soundtracks, without a doubt.
How does this stack up against that library? Like your Planet Earth,
Elephant,
Blue Planet,
specifically Elephant. Well, if I was to put it, I'd say the album itself probably wouldn't be in my top 5 of nature documentary soundtracks.
Right.
But certainly one of the songs is probably in my top 10 favourite pieces. But this is also the first album that I've ever really taken an interest in by Ramin Djawadi. He did do Westworld, and there's a few other ones that he did. 7 Seas, I think it was. And obviously these are things that many of us probably haven't watched, but the main thing he did do is Game of Thrones. And I think that's where he's been tied up. That is a fantastic soundtrack. And since then he has now done Elephant. So I'm hoping that what the case is that he'll have a bit more time to work on other things now, because Game of Thrones has just been taking up all of his time for the last several years.
Do any of the elephants murder each other in dynastic struggles?
Absolutely not.
Are there any castles?
No.
Dragons?
No. There is a cute baby elephant though. So, that's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this was my first album by Ramin Djawadi. And unfortunately, well, I've looked at his library, and I don't really think there's anything at the moment I'll be listening to actively. But that one has been replaying on my Amazon Music ever since was it Friday? When I first watched Elephant, it was less than 12 seconds in, the African lady started singing, the music started playing, and I was like, this needs to be in my library right now. I searched for it and I couldn't find it. And a few days later I looked it up online, and it turned out that it was coming soon. So I was throwing my toys out of the pram, very much so, stomping around with a stroppy face. But actually it turned out it was there all along, and it was just hidden below a bunch of other much less warranted albums that were called Elephant and things like that.
How many albums are called Elephant?
I don't know. You'd be surprised, mate. I've got like some weird songs in my library. You know, I'm trying to think of one like right now. I can't think of one off the top of my head. We're going to have a discussion on that, guys. We're going to have a discussion on some of the weird names of songs I've got in my Amazon Music library. I think one of them is called is it Lemonade or something like that? Effervescent. I think I've got one called Effervescent. Yeah, I mean, that just means fizzy,
Aren't
right?
They the Wake Me Up Inside guys?
No.
Wake me up inside.
Anyway, so yeah, Disney Nature. If you're somebody who has Disney Plus and you haven't previously checked it out, you absolutely should check it out. It's so worth it. But beware, because it does do that thing where it makes you fall in love with characters, and then sometimes does really awful things to them. So now, that's just my warning.
I'm glancing at your notes here, and I see a bullet point that's labelled Tim Allen -chimp ? I'm intrigued. Would you
Anybody looking over my shoulder would be very confused, right? The one we watched directly after we watched Elephant was the chimp one. That was about a baby chimp.
Was he Curious George?
He was not Curious George, because Curious George has a tail and is therefore a monkey.
Curious George got killed by curiosity. He started pulling government files and, looking into stuff too deeply. They had to take him out.
I remember Mum saying to me, George, you know who that is narrating it? And I was just like, I can't quite get it. And then literally 2 minutes later, he yelled as part of the script. He yelled and I just went, oh, that's Buzz Lightyear. And it was definitely Tim Allen.
in the tradition of Christmas with the Cranks.
That is not his Christmas movie. His Christmas movie is The Santa Claus. He is actually Father Christmas. And he also is this guy who narrates Chimp. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I think that's everything we've covered that we want to cover so far as Disney Plus is concerned. There's just so much on there. There is genuinely so much on there.
Just go on there and have a trawl.
Maybe.
Don't just go for the top thing. Have a little rummage around and you'll find some pretty weird stuff.
A few recommendations we would make. Probably Halloween Town. I believe there's 4 of those. There's 4, and we watched all 4, and they are absolutely atrocious, but they're fantastic. They are fantastic. I definitely recommend those. I would definitely recommend going and watching the Lilo and Stitch series. If you had watched the movie and not watched the series, it's even better. It's even funnier.
Well, the animation's a little...
Well, that's okay. That's
crappier,
fine.
But...
Nobody... we're not looking for animation. We're looking to waste time, and that is a very good way of wasting time. What else would you recommend? Obviously, The Mandalorian. Absolutely. If you like Star Wars or you don't like Star Wars, my mum doesn't like Star Wars, and she was screaming at us to put on the next episode as fast as possible.
Yes.
So definitely The Mandalorian.
She was so into it. I was surprised.
Yeah, basically, my mum likes something if she don't fall asleep. If she's still awake at the end of the movie / episode, she likes it.
It's a pretty definitive review,
So yeah, if you're a Disney kid, if you're a Disney person, you will have we find gems on there we didn't even know about. Even if you're not, I would still recommend it because there is just so much else to find on there that doesn't necessarily just feel like you're giving money to Disney. It feels like there are people actually who deserve this, who have worked so hard and created something so unique and connecting, and they're on there as well. It is worth it. Guys, you can have my Fortnite, I just pretend in my head it's going to them.
Just sign up for the free trial. There's a free trial, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 7 days, so be careful.
Just watch The Mandalorian, at least.
Yeah, at least watch that. I mean, they've only got 6 episodes at the moment, so...
Also, just in what's probably going to become a running feature, I'd just like to add a few little fact checks here.
Yep.
Because we do talk off the top of our heads.
Yeah, we'll probably put like a weird jingle at the front.
Yeah.
Like,
Ding, ching, ching, ching.
the doy.
Corrections. But basically, when we were talking about The Mandalorian, I omitted Dave Filoni, who's obviously head of the writers team, very prominent Lucasfilm staff member. He's worked on a lot of great things like Clone Wars and things like that.
You called him a staff member.
He's a staff member.
A staff member.
And of course, the Mandalorian himself was, of course, Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
Pedro. I knew
How
it
could
was
we
something
forget him?
Spanish or Mexican or whatever, and I knew he had 2 first names for both his names. Both his names are first names, which is awesome. And mate, you are really good looking, all right? It was just that shot. Did not do you any favours. Also, I'd like to point out in The Mandalorian, Taika Waititi. Okay? More of that, please. And that is the end of the discussion.
Well, Taika Waititi is probably an episode in
That's
and
the
of
end
itself,
of the
you know?
discussion. We're going to talk about him now.
No, I'm saying that's another episode. I literally said that's another episode. I was drawing a line under it. That was the line.
It's not your fault, it's just because you make me talk about something else. And I'll start talking about something else. It's hard for me not to start talking about it.
Anyway, if anybody is still listening, we can only thank you for your patience.
Your precious, precious time.
your
Thank you
precious
for
time.
wasting your precious time with us.
Thank you for wasting your precious time with us. We will get better. We promise.
I think we should sign off every episode like that.
We will get
Thank you for wasting your precious time with Will and Topher. We promise we will get better.
We'll do better, but we never do. But take care, everybody. Wash your hands and stay safe. We will be back with another episode very soon. Very soon. Okay.
Bye.